computer, yes, take all the pixels with that number and make them fade. So you can actually find the writing underneath it. You can actually identify the ink that covered it over, and once it's removed, you can see what's underneath it. And it's a lot easier than I thought. I mean, again, I'm not a professional with this, but once I did it, I said I couldn't believe how easy it was. Just you find the right thing to click on, you move the slider, and the original writing just pops right out. You can alter it in different ways. You can magnify it to get a better look at it. You can make it lighter or darker, make backgrounds lighter or darker so that your writing is more easily visible. You can change the colorization, the contrast between the back of the writing and the writing and the background to make it more clear. Remove a specific color or a specific area of it to make it make the original more easily seen. Believe it or not, it's a very simple and quick way to find some of these alterations, and it clarifies many attempts at obliterating the original writing using a computer. Then there's an important idea called indented writing. Okay, not this kind of indented, the one that you're told to start every paragraph with. We're talking about the third dimension, not across and up and down, but above and below the paper. That kind of indented writing. Whenever you write on a piece of paper with a pen, you're going to indent the paper. Now, if you write on a pad, you're not only going to be indenting the top of the pad where you're writing it, but the papers underneath will also be indented. So this is actually very valuable. Very often it's very valuable because many times, criminals, they have to write things down. So they write, even though they're incriminating. So they write them down on a pad. Then they take the incriminating evidence and then throw it away. So you don't have the incriminating evidence. But you do have the papers under the paper that was written on. Therefore, the indentations on the upper paper where the evidence really was will be transferred to the paper underneath it. And if we can get these indentations, we can find out what the original writing was on the paper over it. So this is very valuable because, again, we can find evidence, find clues from that kind of writing, from the indented writing. Now, one quick way of doing this is using oblique lighting. So, oblique lighting is lighting, let's say, from the side so that little indentations will be in shadow. So we can identify the indentations by the shadow. So sometimes you can do it very quickly, like looking under a microscope. You use the oblique lighting, and you'll be able to tell where the indentations are. A better way, however, to do it is using electrostatic imaging. Now, before we get to that, let me just tell you that you might have seen some detective show where they see, I know something, it's a blank sheet of paper, but something's written over it. There's got to be a clue. So they take a pencil and they rub over it, and the indentations do not get rubbed because they're indented, and the pencil mark goes over everything else, so it shows up as white in the black. Now, it can. Let me tell you. Okay, I can tell you this. It can work. It can work, and it sometimes does. It is not done. In the forensic, people do not do this. Absolutely not. It's a clue. We don't obliterate the clue by putting pencil marks all over it. Okay? I mean, this should be clear to people by now that that evidence is treated very carefully with forensics. So we try not to ruin it by rubbing a pencil all over it. There are much better ways. The oblique lighting is a better way. But the best way so far is electrostatic imaging, and let's get to that. What they do is they have the piece of paper. They take a plastic sheet, let's say somewhat soft so that it indents easily. You suck it right onto the paper, right onto this paper that you suspect has the indentations. So the plastic gets molded onto this paper indentation. So the plastic also gets indentations too. We give it an electric charge and apply a toner. This is like a black thing that will stick to the indented areas. That's because they're indented, so the electric charge kind of like concentrates there, sort of, and gets the toner there. Never mind why it works, but the point is the black toner. It's black. This black toner sticks to these indentations. So if you can brush off the other places, you will actually have a black mark where the indentations were. The more the indentation, the more the black it is. So we can actually show indentations of not only the sheet above it, but two sheets above it. It can also indents, but it indents less. We can actually tell. The one that was indented more was with paper 1 above it. Indented less was 2 papers above it. So we can actually see a lot of important information. Not just 1 paper above, but 2. So here's an interesting example. Here was a ransom. I believe this is actually a real one. They see how they wrote. They wrote deliberately with like block writing, where you can't really tell is clearly not their own writing. They're writing in this way. This is a ransom note, and what they did is they used electrostatic treatment. What was it called again? Electrostatic imaging. So here's electrostatic, whatever the DA stands for. But anyway, electrostatic document analysis. That's what it stands for. Anyway, so what they did is here's the note. They said, wait, there might have it's probably from a pad. Maybe they wrote something incriminating above it. They put this into the electrostatic imager, and they found this writing above it. They deliberately removed. This is like the original writing. They deliberately removed it using, I think, a computer writing, using a computer. So this they removed. But the original writing it says, feed gator, I think it's the name of a dog, but whatever it is, and water the plants around the spa, greenhouse, and fish pond. Okay, so they know the person had, a couple of things. Number one, this was the person's original writing. This, you can actually get a document examiner to use exemplars and try to find out who did that. Also, the person, maybe gator's not a dog, it might be a cat, who knows, but maybe you can't prove much from gator, but there are plants, there's a spa, there's a greenhouse, and a fish pond. Now, who has all those things? Where are these found? That shows, that might tell you a lot about a location. And guess what? This note was written by someone, and the person actually signed their name, Rocky. So we have a name, too. So we see how valuable this electrostatic imaging is for papers. We also analyze ink. We have ways of analyzing ink from a certain specific pen. Now, again, pens are mass-produced, so this is only very often. It's usually only it's only a class characteristic. It's not an individual characteristic. So it's also for printers and photocopiers. We know what kind of ink it is. And they consist of more than one dye, especially if it's colored. I mean, if it's black, then I guess it's only one color, but still there are different components to it. We can separate these different components using thin layer chromatography and HPLC. That's the high performance liquid chromatography. Send it through a tube. All the components will stick in a different way. There's also thin layer chromatography. We dealt with this before in a different lecture. That's where you have, let's say, a plate over here that has a specific kind of surface. You put a spot underneath, and you let solvent flow up the paper. That will carry this ink, let's say, and the different components will be carried up in a different place. Some will be carried here, some there. And we'll tell by, let's say, the three different components how they carry up. So we can figure out more or less what the thing is. We usually use the HPLC for that, not thin layer chromatography, but thin layer chromatography is fast and easy, so we usually do that first. Anyway, put it through the HPLC, and we'll identify the different components of the ink. And there is an international ink library, has a data bank for all the inks. Which companies produce which kind of HPLC chromatograms. So we'll be able to identify where this ink came from. What kind of a pen? It may be a very special ink. It may be an ink that foreign countries produce and not in this country. So, well, maybe the person came from a foreign country. There may be, again, this provides leads, this provides evidence. We can find out what kind of ink this is, what the source of what kind of pen gave the ink that we have in the question document. It also something that shows back